It's remarkably common. The failure of your heart is what kills most people in the end, but the numbers are about 1 in 6 men will die from heart disease, and about 1 in 9 women overall. So it's quite serious. And about every 7 minutes someone will get a heart attack. So it's a very common process.
So what will happen if someone in your family catches it or something and you haven't got it? Will it spread or...?
No, heart disease is not really an infectious disease. It doesn't spread from person to person. You can inherit from your parents some susceptibilities that makes you more likely to have heart disease than a person at random, but those are the relatively rare ones. So most heart disease is caused by what's happened to you over the period of your life.
Yeah. Is heart disease a serious problem?
Yes, because the thing about heart disease is that it often kills people in midlife, and therefore that has a big impact on...
Yeah, so around their 40s, something like...
That's a very common age to have it, yes, but it can affect people at all ages. Some types of heart disease are one of the biggest killers of people under 30. They're not particularly common, but if you're under 30, one of the most likely things that's going to kill you is a heart disease. Numbers are small, but most people under 30 are pretty healthy and don't suffer from major problems, but heart disease is one that can affect them.
What causes heart disease?
Well, usually the heart's a fairly complicated piece of machinery, and what happens is that, like most bits of machinery, things can go wrong. And so in many cases, either the muscles that pump the blood around the heart become weaker, or the supply of blood to the heart, because the heart requires its own blood supply to be able to provide the oxygen for the muscle.
Yeah, because the heart needs to pump out blood and...
Yeah. So the heart gets weaker for all sorts of reasons, and if it gets weak, it's pumping less blood, and then that becomes a problem for the rest of the body.
Yeah, so it's literally just a big muscle in your body.
It is a big muscle, and it's working all the time. It can't stop working, because if you stop working, then essentially you die. So it has to keep pumping non-stop throughout your life. And most of the time, a heart will work perfectly well for 100 years or more, beating once a second at rest, and there's really no problem. But sometimes you get a build-up of problems that cause the heart to become weaker, become less effective, and then that becomes a crisis at some point, which then can become heart disease, and that can give you a heart attack or heart failure.
What does it feel like when you have a heart disease?
Well, that's difficult to say. I've not had one, so I don't know exactly what it feels like. But yes, but heart disease...
Yeah, it must feel like really shocking and...
Well, when you have a crisis, it's shocking.
Yeah.
Most heart disease means you just become weaker, so that you get out of breath more readily, can have poor circulation to your limbs and your fingers and things.
So you can't really feel your fingers or something.
Well, you can feel them, but they become weaker and they start to become less sensitive. So if you sit on your leg or lie badly, you can reduce the circulation to your leg, and so when you get up, your leg's gone dead. And then the blood comes back to it and you get those tingly feelings. So when your heart doesn't work, it's like that. The blood to your limbs becomes weaker, and therefore you start to feel these strange sensations that you can't move it so easily, and you get these tingling sensations. And those are the early stages of heart disease. Later on it becomes more serious, and then you can have these more traumatic events like a heart attack.
Can you tell if I have a healthy heart?
By looking at you, not so easily. I mean, in a sense that you can usually tell, because if you're reasonably fit and active and you don't get out of breath particularly easily, then your heart is pretty fine. Simple things like just taking your pulse. You can feel if your pulse is constant and regular. That tells you have a healthy heart. So at a simple level, it's fairly easy to tell those things. But you can't tell whether you're going to have a problem in 5 years' time or 10 years' time, because these things develop over a long period.
Yeah, so basically, like you just said, if the next day, if you're going to have a heart attack or something, you won't know.
You may not know. I mean, there are these cases of there are these dramatic cases of people who are very active in sport, and they're busy doing their sport, and they have some trauma while on the football field or the squash court, and they collapse because their heart stops functioning. Those people often have what is apparently a very healthy heart, but under those extreme conditions, something happens, and the heart goes into an arrest. And if you don't get attention very quickly, you'll die because you can't survive very long without the oxygen.
Can we stop ourselves from having heart disease?
A lot of it can be, if not stopped, it can be made much better. So, I mean, a large part of heart disease is down to lifestyle. So things that are known to be bad for the heart are smoking, which is the classic one. But also,
like drinking and
alcohol can be a problem. Eating is a problem because overweight is a problem because if you're overweight, your heart has to work harder. You're carrying much more weight around. You're working much harder. But also, you build up fatty deposits in your arteries, and these tend to block the arteries, and so the heart has to work harder. So things like eating healthily, exercising regularly, being careful about things like smoking, drinking, all these things, which are the natural things about having a healthy lifestyle, will be good for your heart, and therefore mean it's less likely you're going to have a heart disease. I mean, some things, you're born with a defect, but even then, all these healthy lifestyles will help.
So that's really all I have to ask you today. Thank you very much for coming in.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's been a pleasure.